Okay, now we can get back to it. Now that I'm actually going live on YouTube as well. And actually, if you check on over to the YouTube feed, you can check out the old smudge cam. So if you, the kitty cat's over here, I got a camera right on him, so he's always calming people down. What up there, Bobby Blackwell? Hope you're having a great night here in Chicago. So it's time to talk about a country, a nation, a world that feels colder on the inside, doesn't it? It feels like, just like they said in the Bible when they said that God, that he hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? What up there, hey Baylor? I feel that the world, our universe, has been hardened at the heart. It's been cooled off because of our disconnection from one another. Technology is good, but it's a double-edged sword, my friends, and when it is used willy-nilly, free willy-nilly, all without any type of restrictions, especially in young people. And when I say young people, I mean people under like 19 or 20, right? Because we all think we're old as fuck until we get older, and then we're like, damn, we didn't know shit, and I can't believe how fucking stupid I was, right? And I can't believe that I survived this far, this long. I'm grateful that I did, right? Because there are a lot of people that did less damaging things than I did, and they, you know, they're 6 feet under, right? So what up there, Judy B? What up there, MD4? And I don't say that to brag or boast or say, hey, that's great. I say that to be grateful for the position that I'm in now, and to be grateful that I'm alive, right? And be grateful that even though, what up there, popstop at yahoo dot, that we get older, right? And we have to learn that maybe the way we saw the world isn't exactly how the world is. And this part is one of the caveats that never gets thrown in, unless, yes, the world needs to have a lot more caveats, my friends, because a lot of people are so focused on one thing, but usually there's a couple ways to look at things, if not more, right? And the truth, a lot of times, is relative, but a caveat, my friends, sometimes the truth is not relative at all. There's like a truth, and it's the fucking truth, regardless of whatever way you want to spin it, whatever way you want to rationalize it, what the fuck you want to tell yourself, you want to tell your kids, or you want to tell the people that you surround yourself by. You're wrong. You're basic and you're dumb as fuck. And that is, and I felt that way in my lifetimes, at times as well, right? So you have to be able to obviously look at the glass half full, but you have to find humor in your own stupidity, right, my friends? So, what up there, Treehenge? What up there, Diana, little Rod 5? If you can't find humor in your own humor, if you can't find humor in your own humanity and stupidity, well, you won't be laughing very much, will you? Yeah, because all of us are pretty fucking stupid. So anyway, I'll tell you this: you can feel it in our families. Thanksgiving just passed, but you can feel it in disconnected conversations that you can't have, or won't have, or should have, but haven't yet, right? You can see it in our politics. It's definitely cold as shit in there. Like, we've been working to where we are now for decades, if not more. You know what I mean? So you can't just be like, oh, blame this or blame that. It's a snowball effect of the craziness that our politics are at right now, the inability that people have to compromise and realize that in a good compromise, no one's happy, okay? So if you have two warring factions or two differing factions or two organizations or entities that are trying to find some sort of balance and are fighting over things, if you want to have a balance and want to have a compromise, everyone needs to give up a little bit of something that they don't want to give up. So then you all got equal skin in the game, right? And then that's the whole point of our system, was so that one side never got too much power, and honestly, it should be more than a two-sided system, obviously. So come on. You are probable. Hope you're having a great night. What up there, Bob Taylor? I like that name. Can't go wrong with that. You can hear it in the way people talk to strangers, the way that people don't talk to strangers, the way that people feel off-put by strangers, or the way they feel when strangers do try to talk to them. They feel, oh, what are you after? What are you trying to manipulate? What are you trying to get from me? What are you trying to get over on me? What are you trying to force upon me, right? You can sense it in the way that tension follows us everywhere. And yes, now we are back on YouTube, my friends. We weren't there earlier, but we are now, and we're streaming live, and we got the smudge cam over there, and it's a good night because we're talking about community. We're talking about influencing with positive empathy. My friends, we didn't wake up one day frozen as a society, right? We didn't just one day be like, oh, we're a caring, great, beautiful society, and now we're frigid cold. And this is not something that is only happening now, right? It's not only happening like in the past 50 years or the past 100 years or the past 150 years, 200 years. It's been happening for a long time. Let's think about how mean and gruesome humans have been to one another for so long, right? But we have gotten up to civilization, and now we're supposed to be able to talk about things. I thought we had psychiatry and psychology and sciences, and we were understanding the philosophies and the arts, you know what I mean? And this big freeze that we have going on in our society, my friends, has been coming for a very long time. We're going to get back on track because coldness, it's on the inside. And coldness that's built into our systems, my friends, it's all around us. Coldness passed down through culture, through politics, of course, through religion, and economics. Yes, coldness is passed down through economics. Steve, 55, do you know what I'm talking about? But I'm saying that coldness and inhumanity is being passed down in the way that jobs and corporations and companies and that type of thing gets run. And this isn't an attack on the American way of life or the capitalism or business. It is an attack on people that want to just hoard large amounts of money and corporations that want to make a bajillion dollars off of, Joe Public and then not want to pay a fucking cent in taxes, right? In an economy and nation that they make a bunch of money in. I mean, that should not be trickery. That's not political trickery. You know what I mean? Like, that's like straight up words explained that I don't understand how anybody could not be on that, understand that. But hey, people like to shove their head deep down in the sand anytime that people want to talk about things that make you uncomfortable. And if things make you uncomfortable and they make you need to grow and they make you like look at yourself a little different way and be like, man, I don't know if I was, thinking the right way about this, or man, I don't think that my walk is matching my talk. What up there, Greg Keaton? Hope you're having a great night here in Chicago. Today we're going to stop pretending that we do not feel it. Today we're going to ask the question almost nobody wants to ask, my friends. Where is all this cold coming from? Well, we're going to get into a Bible verse here, folks. Matthew 24:12. And I'm going to get the old pigskin out. We're going to read deep. I was reading this one earlier, and it's pretty interesting because he's basically... Okay, so basically, Jesus is sitting around, and his disciple, he's telling him, like, oh, the end of days are going to come, right? And the end of days are coming, the second coming, right? And all that good stuff. And his disciples, they're like, they pull him over to the side. Of course, they're always doing that shit. They're always pulling hey, what up there, Connie Gibson? The disciples are always doing this shit. They're always pulling Jesus off to the side to try to get, like, little secret morsels, like little secret nuggets of the universe. He hooks them up, man. Hey, what up there, Chris Trevino? He definitely hooked up his disciples, with some little tidbits of things, and then they wrote them into their stories. What up there, Mr. Fixer? What up there, K Don? They wrote them into the stories, and in this one, Jesus is basically talking about the end of days, and they're like, hey, man, hey, can you maybe give us a little insider's look on when the end of days are coming? And they're thinking that they're gonna get a little something. But like always, Jesus is 10, 20, 30 steps ahead when he gives them another parable, right? Or another group of similes or metaphors, Hey, what up there, Tammy at Tennessee? What up there, Ram? What up there, JK? What up there, Ken Jones? What up there, Barth Spinoza? A6, sorry, I almost didn't get that. But basically, we got to get to this real quick. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so he's the destruction of the temple, which of course is him, but they don't get that at the time because they're dense, they're dull, they're idiots, as Jesus has called them many times over the course of his tenure as the teacher of all teachers, right? So anyway, he's sitting up there on the Mount of Olives, and there you go. So Jesus basically answers them, hey guys, first off, listen up. Do not be deceived. Don't be deceived. There's going to be people out there that are going to say, hey, I'm the Messiah. I'm the chosen one. You got to follow me. And a lot of people could maybe take that literally. That people are going to be out there saying, "Oh, I'm Jesus. I'm back." It does say that they're going to perform signs and miracles that can trick even the elect. That can trick even some of the main Christians. Right? What up there, David? Happened. But the main issue of the point is people are "Oh, we're going to predict the end of times." Any human on earth that thinks they know when the end of times is coming, if they are saying they're Christian, right? Because other religions, they don't give a fuck about the Bible, right? So they're gonna predict whatever the fuck they want. But if you are Christian, right, you cannot be listening to anybody, any human, telling you that they are predicting when the end of times is coming, right? Because in this version of this Bible, right, it says that Jesus basically says that if anyone knows the deep dive on that, let me know. But it's kind of interesting because in 24:36 he says, but about that day or hour no one knows, not the angels in heaven nor the Son, only the Father. And so that's interesting, right? Because there's even a footnote in this one that says, in some manuscripts, they do not have nor the Son. Now, I could understand that if someone was writing a copy of the Bible, they might not want to have that part in there, especially if they were putting their whole faith in Jesus, because if they're saying, okay, the Trinity, if they're the Catholics would definitely not like that idea, right? Because that means that Jesus is definitely not as on the same level, and they're definitely not 3 in 1, because if Jesus doesn't know when he's coming back, right, then obviously he's not as powerful or not as, on the level as the big man upstairs, which I've been saying it all along. Jesus says this over and over again. He doesn't want you to praise him. He wants you to love everyone as your neighbor. Love Lord your God with mind, soul, heart, and strength, which means that you should love everybody like that, right? Yeah. Crazy, right? Go figure that one. That's difficult, huh? But anyway, let's get back to the verse at hand, because we got off on one of them crazy tangents that we always seem to get off on. Anyway, 24:12, right? So here it goes. Because of the increase in wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. Ha! How about that, right, folks? And we're talking about a cold heart right now, and that's a perfect verse for this perfect situation. What up there, Scoop? What up there, Michelin Swan? Stop looking at me, Swan. Anybody know that one? That's a throwback for you. But anyway, 24:12, folks. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. When cruelty and selfishness rise, yes, the human heart, well, it freezes. Fear, it replaces compassion, of course. Greed replaces community. Anger replaces understanding. Coldness becomes the general climate in which we live. Jesus wasn't describing weather. No. He didn't use the word cold in terms of that, right? He was explaining that what happens when corruption goes unchecked. People protect themselves by shutting down, my friends. And when I say corruption can be anywhere. Corruption in our own hearts, corruption in our society, corruption in the way that we deal with each other, right? This is the America that we are living in, folks. A cold, critical, attention-seeking, greed-driven society. Yeah, and that's just what it is. And that's not an attack on capitalism. Now, unfettered capitalism, that's very dangerous, because the American government is supposed to be there to keep businesses in check, right? Just make sure, hey, look, because we all know that greed left unchecked, it'll fucking run itself crazy. And you just have to look outside. You just have to look at these giant corporations. You just have to look at the distribution of wealth in the world, let alone America, to realize that the rich keep getting rich, and the people that keep getting fucked over and marginalized, they keep getting fucked over and marginalized. And that's not race, that's not sex, that's not gender, that's not anything that's likes. It is money. Money. Fucking Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob money, right? I got gizmos and gadgets aplenty. Yeah, mixing up my analogies there. But you know what I'm talking about, folks. Seaweed's always greener in someone else's lake. Proverbs 31:8-9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. See, these verses, they go together, my friends, from the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Middle Testament, and all the Testaments alike. A warm heart does not ignore suffering. A warm heart does not see something and not see the empathy inside it. So when you're in the train at 3 in the morning on the blue line and you're looking around at the people sleeping on the benches with their bags, with their not much of anything, the guy who's taking his shoes off and has them up there, and you can't even stay in the car for more than 1 minute because it smells like human disgustingness. And I was mentioning earlier, this is not a rag on homeless population. It is a rag on our societal care of people that are stuck outside, of people that have been put themselves in a situation that they don't want to be in. And yes, there are motherfuckers out there who should just get whatever the fuck they have coming, right? But those are the people that are fucking it up for the people that could use a little compassion, that could use a system, that could use a system that cares, that it could use a system that takes the ridiculous amount of money that we waste on elections, right? And maybe put some of that into fixing some of these problems that politicians bitch about and preachers preach about and community activists activate about, you know, and everybody that has a tiniest of fucking soapboxes is trying to get your attention and trying to give me this and give me that and give me this, instead of thinking about what can we do to fix ourselves so then we can help everybody else, right? And yeah, that is right. Everybody stakes kung fu fucking fighting and nothing good can happen, right? So a warm heart, my friends, we need to warm our cockles upon the thoughts that maybe, just maybe, if we can help one person, and then that person helps one person, and that person helps one person, before then we will have a Bernie Madoff pyramid scheme style helping pyramid-a-thon, right? And that would be pretty spectacular. And it's about using your voice where coldness usually silences people, right? They used to say this. They used to say, hey, if you don't want to use drugs, this was a good one, the DARE program taught. Ready, folks? If you're my age, you'll get a throwback from this one. Ready? Just give them the cold shoulder. Remember that shit? They're like, just say no. Like the cold shoulder. Like, what the fuck is a cold shoulder? Like, they have little diagrams, little kids like, if someone goes up to you offering you some pot, some marijuana, you got to turn shoulder to that guy. Duh, 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 duh. Oh, God. Oh, look at these track marks in my arm. If only I knew. Anyway, sorry about that, folks. We need to get into our definitions of today's segment. Emotional frostbite. The slow loss of compassion after repeated exposure to stress, fear, and cruelty. When you are, hey, what up there, EMJ? What up there, DW42? What up there, DT124? What up there, Mikey B? What up there, Tony Andre? What up there, Bernie B? Hope you guys are having a great night. We're talking about a cold, cold society on this cold, cold evening in Chicago. Societal disconnection. A culture where people live physically near to each other, but no longer within reach of each other societally, right? So, what up there, Bob Dick? What up there, Wham? What up there, Berkshire? Hope you're having a pleasant evening. We're talking about societal disconnection, where people live close to one another, but we seem to be farther away from each other than ever before. Moral hypothermia, of course, is what ensues when you start to get frigid from societal disconnection. What up there, Jordan Nelson? What up there, Haley? What up there, Right Zone? What up there, Guy526? Valuing shutting down under constant pressure, under misinformation, and under societal fear, because we've been told society's bad, people are bad, if they don't look like you, they're bad, if they don't sound like you, they're bad, if they don't smell like you, they're bad, if they don't speak exactly like you and look like you and worship the same God as you and are in a social circle that your parents have handpicked for you, they're bad. So, and you know what I'm talking about, because it is taught, maybe not so outright in those words, right, but it is taught in the way that we act, you know, and we've talked about this before, that you can judge a person by the fruit of their labors, right? You say, oh, hey, look at that person. Maybe not listen to what they say. Let's look at what they're doing. And let's look at where they're spending their money. Let's look at where they're, what they're putting their time into. right? Manufactured fear. What up, Fred Howe, 366? This is one of the big ones, folks. Manufactured fear. Deliberate creation of societal anxiety. Deliberate creation of anxiety in general. There to distract, to divide, and to control. And no, Daddy doesn't want a sausage. The population. The cold inside of us, my friends. Let's talk about the internal freeze. The emotional and spiritual coldness people are carrying. You know that here at Double Dog Addiction turned Positive Influence on a Sunday night. We don't just talk about things in happenstance or retrospect or circumspect or suspect in general. Any type of, all of the specs. We have those covered. 58% of Americans say they have no one they can confide in about personal struggles. Think about that, folks. Over half of people do not have someone they can confide with personal struggles. Everybody needs somebody to talk to, right? I mean, we've written songs about it. I mean, right? Yes. Robot meows. I was frightened. Indeed. Indeed. Gosh. I do indeed like turtles. They are wise. And I like owls as well. But this little guy. Hello, turtle. Hello, hello. Anyway, here we go. Don't want to get me all sidetracked, folks. Loneliness has risen over 30% over the last decade. Loneliness. But the population has gone up. So what's up with that? How does the population go up, but then we don't know as many people, right? That kind of trend does not happen by accident. It happens, yes, it happens when a society stops prioritizing connection. Over 60% of Americans say the nation feels less compassionate than it did 5 years ago. So we're not saying about whatever is going on in 5 years or 5 years or 5 years, but we're talking about that things change, and the idea is that we're less compassionate, right? That's the part of the lesson to stick on to. They feel something, we know something, we have seen it, there's something shifting. It's not just something in the air, it's in our statistics, it's in hate crime statistics, it's in violent crime statistics, in whatever districts or whatever demographics or way that data is divided, because that's what the world is about right now. It's about, yes, stopwatch to, yes. I don't know, I think that we definitely still have to be somewhat involved with the world around us. But yes, if you are so overwhelmed or just dealing, like we talk about this anyway, that with drug addiction, with mental health, with a lot of things, you're not in a good place to deal with some of the shit that's going on. But that's the good part about love and community, my friends, is that, well, when maybe at one point you can't do something about something, there's people out there that can, and they'll be carrying the torch. Well, some of us have to recenter, like we're talking about right there, Mr. Sir. I agree that it may take time. It may take years to recenter, my friends. But finding that balance so that you can be a productive member of yourself, and everything else will follow, my friends. You start to talk about, if you try to do something for the purpose of achieving the accolades or achieving the whatever prize you're trying to get at the end, you won't be fulfilled by the journey, and you sure as fuck usually don't get everything that you think you're gonna get at the end of something like that. And that's what I'm talking about. They know something is shifting in the world, in our own society, but when people feel emotionally cold for long enough, well, we start protecting ourselves with numbness. And numbness, it becomes normal. And sometimes we numb ourselves with drugs. Sometimes we numb ourselves with alcohol. Sometimes we numb ourselves with sex. Sometimes we numb ourselves with working out. Sometimes things can look healthy, or we've deemed them as successful or healthy, like workaholicing, or making billions of dollars, which is not normal, not healthy, and if anything but a good thing for our society. But anyway, the cold is all around us, my friends, and the second freeze, yes, not the second coming, but the second freeze, yes, that is structural. The cold system shaping our collective lives. Over 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Listen, my friends, you can't foster warmth when you're constantly trying to outrun disaster, when you don't know where your next meal is coming from, when you don't know how you're going to pay the heating bill and pay for school supplies and pay for something for dinner that's somewhat nutritious, right? How the fuck do people even raise kids these days? It's so expensive right now. And if you don't have health care, if you don't have this type of stuff, and what if someone in your family gets sick? Man, it's just like, and the worry of not being financially able to take care of yourself when there's people out there that have so much money that, A, they didn't earn, like, you know, they just inherited that shit. Two, they don't know what the fuck to do with it, right? It just sits there making money on itself so you can just like brag to your friends about it, right? And medical debt is the #1 cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States. Think about that, folks. In a country where we have some of the best best medicine in the world, but if you can't afford it, what the fuck does it matter if it's there? A Lamborghini does me no good if I don't have $1 million to spend on fucking gas and another $1 million for insurance with all the fucking DUIs, right? They're not gonna fucking let me insure a Lamborghini. Get out of here. Anyway, a society where getting sick destroys your life is a society built on coldness, my friends. The average worker produces 70% more value right now than in 1970, yet wages have barely moved, my friends. Yes, the best meds is God-giving, and giving in the name of God. That's right, my friends. That means productivity climbs, profits climb, CEO pay climbs, but everyday person stands still. And that's not an economy failing, my friends. That is an economy freezing people in place. And these aren't random statistics, nay. These are symptoms of a system that values output more than humans. And this isn't politics, my friends. This is humanity. This is basic level stuff, right? Fear more than stability. Profit over community. Coldness, my friends, is not only emotional, it's engineered, okay? And don't let me lose you here. This is not a be afraid of the man, be afraid of, the radio recording birds that are flying by you and the flat earth that we're all going to fall off of. No. What does this all mean? Well, when we put the emotional coldness and the systemic coldness side by side, it kind of emerges a fuller picture, right? Jesus warned us that wickedness grows and love freezes. The statistics show that people are lonelier, they're more disconnected, they're more stressed, and they're more numb than ever. The system shows that fear, exhaustion, inequality, and injustice are not just accidents, they're structures, right? And the combined effect is a nation of people who are emotionally drained. They're spiritually discouraged. They're relationally brittle, right? They can barely fucking talk to one another. And they're economically trapped, whether by their extreme wealth, or by their extreme poverty, or by their extreme mediocrity, right? It's not a weakness, it's not a lack of character, and everybody wants to be in a situation that they're not in. No one can be content where they are, right? And listen, that's what he on because he wants some. Yes, what I'm on, my friends, is life. And it is the predictable outcome of a society that treats warm hearts as liabilities and frozen hearts as efficient, right? You say this, oh, liability, liability, liability. Ah, yes, much efficient, ah, yes, efficient. And all the efficient people are like, blah, 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 fucking Adderall motherfuckers. And all the liabilities are like, oh, the free thinkers and doing the fuck they want, making up good ideas that they can't profit off of, right? But if we can understand where the cold comes from, inside of us and around us, then we can finally begin to thaw this out, right? So it's time to move into segment 2. That's right, folks. Now that we know where the cold comes from, we need to face what the cold does to us, individually, emotionally, and generationally. Because it doesn't just happen inside us, it doesn't just happen to us. We happen to ourselves, and then we happen to each other. And that's where things go wrong. Or, a caveat, my friends, things go very, very good. So, now that we understand where the cold comes from, inside of us and all around us, we have to look at what the cold actually does to the human spirit. Because coldness isn't just a feeling. Oh, no. It's not just being distant. It's not just, oh, brr. It's not just being frustrated or exhausted. Right? Coldness is a condition. It's a long-lasting, staying, sticking condition, right? It affects the nervous system. It affects the emotional system. It affects the spiritual system as well, my friends. It affects the way we see ourselves and the way that we respond to other people. And note what I just said there, folks. Not the way that we see ourselves or the way we see other people, but the way that we respond to other people. Because coldness, my friends, is not passive. Coldness is not the absence of doing something. Coldness is not apathy, right? Coldness is a action. You do it, right? And it reshapes us. The tragedy is we often think that this reshaping is our own fault. A lot of us out there feel different, or we feel yucky, or we feel unbalanced. And we feel like, well, we must be doing something wrong, right? We must have fucked it up ourselves. We must be, I think I just need to change this, or I need to change that, or I need to change this. But this, my friends, the data, oh yes, we shall check the data. This is a little throwback for Magic School Bus. Ready, folks? According to my research, anyone can name that one for me. I'll give you a slap on the back. But the data, of course, says otherwise. The freeze-work experience has measurable, predictable, and generational consequences, and we need to understand them to clearly understand how to thaw, right? So, yeah, we don't just stick with Christianity here. We're getting into Buddhism with the Dhammapada. 2, 2, 3. Conquer anger with love. Conquer evil with good. Conquer stinginess, yeah, that's in there, with generosity. And conquer a liar with truth. To paraphrase, folks, you can't warm the world with more coldness, right? You're not going to end war by waging a bigger war. Yeah, I know. Crazy, right? You can't make things better when you're making things worse, right? And if you're not making things better, wait for it, you're making things worse, right? Boom! Shakalala, right? Every icy reaction creates another one. Warmth is the only force strong enough to interrupt this cycle. And this is a difficult concept for even Christians to understand. But Jesus made it pretty clear when he said that you got to love your neighbor as yourself. And then when he asked, well, who's your neighbor? And then he does the whole Good Samaritan thing. And he's like, yeah, it's not the priest or Levi. It's not the people that look like you. It's not the people that, we already went over that whole thing, right? It's not the people that you think. It's not, if you can give something to somebody and the reason you give it to them is because you think that maybe you can get something back, that's not giving in the way that Christ talks about giving, right? So, but this verse, we're skipping over to Buddhism, right? Oh, look at, oh my God, these world religions. Whoa, they're so intertwined, and they have like pillars that match each other. But this verse, of course, is part of the Buddha's teaching on emotional mastery. He understood that anger, well, it multiplies. Fear, that too. And cruelty, bada boom, unless something interrupts that cycle. AKA pattern. Pattern, cycle, interchangeable, folks. What does that mean for us? Well, it means the cold coming toward us, well, it can be the cold that we pass forward and every other direction, right? So unless we thaw ourselves, well, we definitely become carriers of the freeze. I just came up with that. The freeze. That's pretty funny. Anyway, let's get into our keywords of the segment, right? Actually, I think I need a little bit of water. I'm not talking too much. Generational chill. Emotional patterns of coldness absorbed in childhood and passed unknowingly to the next generation. We all do it, folks. We all got it. We all got some negative, bad thing that we've gotten passed down from the people before us. It's not our fault. We didn't do anything to deserve it, and it's just some that we got, right? For some of us, it's way worse. For some of us, this stuff shows up in a lot more negative behaviors and consequences. And then some of us, it's not so noticeable. And then in some of us, it's even something that we've gotten that we thought was positive, but in actuality is not. So anyway, we won't go into specifics on those things because that's not what the episode is about. We can have an episode about emotional patterns of coldness in childhood some other day. But right now, we're going to talk about empathy collapse. which is the ability to, imagine another person's pain, but you can't do it anymore because you're going through too much stress. You're going through too much fear. You're going through too much numbness yourself. And we talked about, you numb yourself one way or numb yourself the other. We do it all whichever way, right? But when we can't empathize with other people, we lose our ability to connect. And when we lose our ability to connect, then we get lonely. And like an addict in recovery, loneliness, you're pretty close on your way to a relapse, my friends. But the relational fading is another one we're going to get into. The quiet erosion of marriages, friendships, and family bonds due to long-term stress and unspoken pain. You know what I'm talking about. We have things that we don't talk about as a family, right? There's things that we'll talk about with Joe Schmo, with Mojo, or whatever the fuck you want to say, Jill Schmill, with anybody out there that we will not talk about with our families, right? And then we say, oh, family first, blood thicker than water, and all that fucking shit, right? But then our actions, maybe I don't know. And I know that the coldness of politics has done a lot of damage to the way that families interact, right? And it sucks because the fading of these relationships over, and we're not talking just politics now, we're talking about all things. So like stresses of like any type of reasons we numb ourselves, drugs, sexual infidelity, all that good stuff we were talking about earlier. But these other things that we can't talk about, which are little things that get bigger over the years, or eventually become things that we just are like, okay, well, it's just like a given thing that we don't talk about, this type of thing. And that, could have untold consequences. It could have unintended consequences. And it could have consequences that we don't quite know about yet. Or hey, maybe it won't have any consequences at all. But the whole point of all of this is to think, okay, well, what's a general level of something that's going to cause consequences? And decide to ourselves, well, is it worth the risk? Is it not worth the risk? Is it worth it to me for whatever may happen, negative or positive, to happen, that I do this action and then weigh it out and then do it? And look, we do this every day. A lot of us don't do it in our decisions. A lot of us do it in the teeniest decisions, which delays us from doing lots of things. And then some of us just don't do it in anything, which causes us to make our decisions purely based on emotion, which is very dangerous, my friends. Very dangerous. All right, time to get into this. Psychological winter, my friends, a sustained period of inner cold where joy, motivation, and connection freeze. And look, those things, a lot of times, motivation doesn't get thrown in there. But motivation needs to be addressed. Because if you don't have motivation, if you don't have the urge, if you don't have the deep-seated need to do something better, to be something better, for any which reason, especially if it's because you've been so cold for so long, that like a permafrost of emotional sadness and depression is basically just always consistently under the surface, right? And you just need somebody to help you warm up, right? The cold inside families. Well, the coldness doesn't start on the street or online. No. We say, oh, people get radicalized online, whatever. But anyway, it starts at home because there's some sort of something that's missing that gets filled with something else, right? It starts in the places that we're supposed to feel safe. How about this? 1 in 5 U.S. adults reports feeling chronic loneliness, even when living with someone else. Wow, right? Living together does not mean connection. So you say, oh, I have a roommate, I have my family. How many people live in your house? Like 5, 6. That doesn't mean that you're not lonely, right? The cold doesn't always look like something at a distance, right? Sometimes it looks like silence. How about that? How many of us have some situations where things just don't even get addressed at all, or they seem like they're addressed but with sarcasm or humor that actually isn't funny, right? 45% of Americans describe their family relationships as strained or distant. Nearly half of our country feels disconnected from the people they're supposed to rely on the most. This, my friends, is relational frostbite. and it's nipping my fingers, and it's nipping my toes, and I don't like it. It's a slow freezing of trust between the value of our family members. And my friends, I know that we say that family is important to us, but tonight, tell one of your family members that you usually do not say to them that you love them. Nearly 40% of parents say they struggle to emotionally connect with their children because of stress or burnout. Not because they don't love them, not because they don't want to, not because they wouldn't want more than anything to spend time with them, but because of life, because craziness, because other people's free fucking choices have fucked over so many people that, they don't have time to spend with their kids, right? They don't have time to give what kids need the most of, right? Which is you. They don't need things. I mean, they need, they need the basic things like we all need, right? They need, food, clothing, community, sense of purpose. They need to not be fucked with at school. Not be told that who they think they are is fucking weird or wrong or stupid, right? I'm not talking about anything weird like that, folks. Any crazy, anything at all. I'm just saying that kids need to be loved, basically. And they need to be helped. And it's crazy, the statistics, when you look at the amount of children, especially at the holidays, that don't have anybody to help take care of them. Anyway, I don't want to get stuck on a tangent of that. We can talk about that another day. But we can talk about coldness inside some of the families, folks, because it doesn't come from cruelty. We talk about it comes from the exhaustion and fear, because people are stuck in emotional survival mode, right? Parents shut down because they're overwhelmed. Kids shut down because they don't want to burden anybody. Partners shut down, well, because they don't want conflict. And before long, the entire household becomes a cold refrigerator. Everybody together, but nothing warming anything else. And this is how coldness becomes generational, my friends, because what you learn as a child is what you do to your kids. Unless you have been lucky enough to go to therapy and to find out what issues that you have wrong with you, that you can help change them so that you don't pass them down to your kids, right? But I don't think that we don't force parents to go to parenting classes, but we get to that another time. Over 30% of Americans report experiencing depression. This is the highest rate ever recorded, folks. And I know that people say, the highest rate of recorded is the highest population ever. Get the fuck out of here. We're talking about the fact that depression is not sadness. Depression is not the moody blues. Depression is not seasonal destructive disorder, right? Depression is numbness, right? Depression is the lack of utter caring, right? It is the internal winter where everything feels frozen. The CDC, oh yes, the CDC reports a 51% increase in youth sadness and hopelessness over the past decade, my friends. Youth. We're talking about youth. We're talking about kids. You should have fucking that type of problems, Come on, get the fuck out of here. This generation is not weak. They're not weak. They haven't been. They're not any less human than the earlier generation. They're not different. They're not bad. They're not wrong. They don't not know what the fuck they want. We have done a terrible job at preparing or teaching or helping the generation after us. We consistently get more selfish and selfish and selfish every generation. So each generation seems to be less caring than the next, but it's because humans will not learn how to care by themselves. They have to be taught how to care about one another. And if we're not teaching each other how to care about one another, then they're only going to do what they see, and they're only going to repeat what they've been taught or what they see us do. So maybe the next time you're out there and you're going to say something fucking all willy-nilly and negative about somebody or something, or yourself, or someone is around to see and you're causing a ruckus and saying mean things about people, maybe we'll think about something else, right? Maybe we'll think twice about that. The average American spends 2.5 hours a day on social media, of course, and less than 20 minutes in meaningful conversation. We're feeding ourselves ice, my friends, and calling it connection. You can't feed yourself And it's not even like a milkshake, right? Because you think, oh, if you're drinking cold milkshakes all day, then maybe you could get excited because you'd be like, oh, hey, share this milkshake with me. But if you're just eating ice, no one's going to want to share ice with you. And if you're going to have an icy conversation, you're going to have a cold breath. You know what I'm saying? We're scrolling past warmth all day. Scroll all day, my friends. But we can't touch it. We see it. We see it there. It's not in there. It's on our phones. It's in our little thingamajigs. We're disconnected from one another, my friends. And here's the hardest truth, is that coldness, well, it changes our identity. It changes not only our actual identity, but it changes the identity that we're meant to be. It changes the identity that we are meant to be because the universe has a plan. It has a, not like a set in stone type thing, I feel, but like if you do what you're supposed to do on this earth, everyone, I feel, has a purpose, some sort of thing. They have some sort of gift that they can do that will bring good to everybody else, right? But if we don't believe that we can do those things, if we don't believe that all of us have that type of thing, and a lot of us are like, oh, I don't get involved in that, right? Oh, I don't talk about that type of stuff. Oh, I don't get involved in that. I just don't deal with that, Not because you're dealing with something else, like we were talking earlier, right? Just for the sheer fact because you don't want to have to deal with the world, right? And that's kind of like the catch-22 that we built ourselves into this isolated echo chamber of America that we have, that we are isolated from the rest of the world, and we can just kind of live in our own existence, right? But here's the sad fact, my friends, is that people, look, they do not always disappoint. And this idea that, hey, I can't trust people, they're just going to let me down, or, I'm better off by myself. I'm better off doing things, all by myself. Love, it just complicates life, right? Oh, love, it just makes things worse. All that type of stuff, right? These beliefs, yes, they may feel like wisdom. They may feel like you're giving off kernels of wondrous, spectacular, joyous, freedom-giving kernels of wisdom to people, but they're actually symptoms of this emotional hypothermia that we're having, right? Because the colder we feel, the more we mistake numbness for clarity, right? You feel like, oh, I'm isolated for my safety, right? But the coldness, it's shrinking our emotional vocabulary. It's making us less able to even describe the state that we're in, right? It shrinks our capacity for empathy. It shrinks our ability to understand ourselves. It shrinks our ability to understand the human condition, right? Why the fuck don't people seem to care about that anymore, right? Philosophical ideas and realizing that what we're doing as a society and how we interact with one another and the community that we build needs to be going up, not down, my friends. That's right. Seriously, blink twice if you are in trouble. Indeed, my friends, if you are in trouble, you need to blink. Not more than once, not twice, nay, thrice, my friends. Coldness, it shrinks our emotional vocabulary. And in fact, it makes us see people doing good in the world and then feel like we have to put some sort of negative wit or a spin on it because we just can't understand our own emotional instability, right? And that's exactly what's going on here, my friends. So I hope, John Kelly, I appreciate you helping me with today's lesson. It shrinks our willingness to trust each other. It shrinks our desire to hope one another. This is real damage of the cold, my friends, and it turns survival into an identity. You ever heard people say they are their trauma, or they're defined by their trauma? Yeah. So what have we learned right now? Well, we learned that the scripture, it told us that the only way to break the cycle of coldness, is through warmth. You don't, fight fire with fire, right? Through actions that interrupt the freeze, not reinforce it. Look, our definitions, of course, they reveal how coldness, it burrows into families. It burrows into habits. It burrows into identities. It burrows into generational patterns, right? And statistics, of course, they paint a nation of loneliness. They paint a nation of disconnection. They paint a nation of depression, youth despair, and broken family ties. But these, my friends, are not personal failures. They are signs of a collective, frigid, failing freeze. And the monologue, of course, I'm sorry to say, it's shown us some painful, painful truth. That coldness is not just something that happens around us. Nay, it happens through us. And it happens in everything that we do. So, it shapes how we speak. It shapes how we react. It shapes how we love, how we think, how we parent, how we partner, how we walk, basically through the world, right? Coldness, it's not passive. It's transformative. And we're getting to the next segment, my friends, because if that segment showed us how the cold affected us, this segment is going to show us why we stay cold. Why? Why do we keep doing this stuff that is not good for us? The stories, the propaganda, the hypocrisy, and the narratives that have convinced us, my friends, that coldness is normal. That us being jaded and ungrateful and irritated and discontent and frustrated and unhappy and pissed off and paranoid, suspective of people, right? By now, of course, we've seen the cold inside of us. Yeah, the cold inside families, right? But today's cold, well, it's not just emotional. It's cultural. We didn't simply become cold, my friends. We are taught to be cold. We're encouraged to be cold. We're rewarded to be cold. Coldness, my friends, as it exists in America today, is not just a feeling. It's a narrative. And narratives, my friends, are powerful. Get a powerful narrative, yeah, you can do a lot of damage. They can make cruelty look righteous. You ever seen that? They make indifference look responsible, right? They can make hypocrisy look like values. And we've all seen it, right? We've seen hypocrisy everywhere in the world. And people act like it's something to be proud of, right? People can make coldness feel like safety and warmth like danger. They make it feel like, oh, don't be friends with more people. That's dangerous. Oh, God. Those bad ideas are getting in your heads. Oh, fuck. Watch out. Right? In this segment, it asks the real question. Who told us that warmth was weakness? And why the fuck did we believe them? Yeah, we're going to use Isaiah 58. Judaism, folks. It is not to share your bread with the hungry and to bring the homeless poor into your house? That's a question, right? To paraphrase, God says this, right? Do you think righteousness is performance? Do you? But righteousness, my friends, is warmth toward the vulnerable. It's warmth toward the hungry. It's warmth toward the homeless. It's warmth toward the hurting. It's warmth toward people that you don't care about right now, right? And that's where the hard-hitting part of, God's message gets sent to us, right? Is that you got to care about one another. And the purpose of life is to find a better way to help take care of people. That's the purpose of life. And when you try to do something that works on that, the other stuff takes care of itself. And it's true. It does. When you finally are content without something, friends, and this is the hardest part to understand and the biggest, awesomest lesson to learn earlier in life if you can learn it, that when you truly are content without something, that is when whatever you think you were going to get from it, maybe it is actually it, you will get it. But the tricky part about it is you cannot trick the universe. You can't say really, really hard, oh, I don't care about this, and then with one eye open, look around and hope that you get it, right? You have to actually not care. And then something happens. It happens in AA, in the books they say that there were situations that used to baffle us that now we can handle. And it's the same thing with life, that there's things that you are like, oh, I need this, or I need that, or I need that. But when you look at it a little different way and you start feeling a little bit a different way about things, different things matter, and you don't feel stressed about certain things, or you don't feel anxiety about certain things, but you do feel empathy for certain things, and you feel, honestly, so a lot of times the biggest or the most anxiety that we feel is over the inability to help other people, right? So This passage, of course, rebukes religious people who performed rituals while ignoring suffering. What up there, Buzzy? Feeling us tonight? That's great. God calls that false faith, right? False faith. False faith. A performance of warmth. And look, in today's society, we think that money equals things. But the tale of the little drummer boy taught us the shit was not the case. You give what you can give, right? So if you have a shit ton, how much should you be giving? A shit ton, right? And if you only have a little bit, how much should you be giving? A little bit, right? A duh. So giving is relative. So like when I drove Uber, I go to these fucking big ass mansions with Mercedes and Lexus in the driveway. The motherfuckers wouldn't even give me a tip. Then I go to like some house, you could tell they didn't have much money, right? Or you could tell that they were like, they could have spent their money on other things, obviously, right? But they give me like a $20 fucking dollar tip, right? So what you do and what you give it's relative, of course. And so if we see someone give like $1 million, I think we saw it in the news the other day, like whoever the fuck it was, one of the billionaires, there's only so many of them. They gave like $6.2 billion or something. Then at the bottom is like, so-and-so made their money doing this, and their worth and estimated it was like 100 and some odd billion. So it wasn't even 10%, right, of their noted worth. And I'm not saying that is less or that's bad or whatever, but I'm just saying that getting all high and mighty and all uppity about, oh, I gave $1 billion to these causes when you have hundreds of billions of dollars, ain't nothing to brag about, son. Like, come on. If society, of course, praises faith when it punishes compassion, yeah, we see that. That's called coldness, right? It's not a faithful society. It's a cold one, hiding behind spiritual branding and spiritual financial benefit, right? Selective compassion, caring only for people who mirror our identity and beliefs. And look, we're going to talk about some stuff that some people are going to be like, oh shit, can't talk about that. We don't talk about that. We definitely don't talk about that shit anymore. Weaponized morality, using faith, patriotism, or values to justify cruelty or exclusion. And yeah, oh yeah, we're going there. Narrative engineering, crafting stories that make harmful behavior appear heroic or necessary. Like blowing up boats that we think are smuggling drugs, even though fentanyl doesn't get smuggled from Venezuela. Come on, get the fuck out of here. False strength syndrome, friends. Mislabeling emotional coldness as resilience or maturity. Hypocrisy blindness. Here's another one, folks. The inability to recognize wrongdoing when committed by our chosen, wait for it, political or religious tribe. Yeah, I said it. The stories that frees us, folks. If you want to keep a nation cold, you don't start with cruelty. You start with a story. A story that tells people they're in danger. A story that tells people empathy is a liability. You don't care for these people. You don't let them in. They're only going to tear us down. They're only going to break things. They're only going to fuck things up. A story that tells people helping others will harm themselves. Oh, these fuckers already have enough. Well, they don't earn it. They didn't do, what have they done to earn what we're giving them? Right? Nearly 60% of Americans believe the nation has become too soft. That's not an observation, my friends. That's not statistics. That's a narrative. Soft. A story planted in the national psyche. It tells the people warmth is weakness. That tells the people Christianity isn't about loving your neighbor. What? A story telling us that compassion is naive. That emotional, intellectual stability is emotional naivety, right? But no, empathy, well, it could get you hurt, right? Oh, don't help too much. You'll just have less for you. But the truth, well, a cold society is not strong. It's brittle, right? 47% of Americans believe helping the poor creates dependency. They think that giving money to help the poor will just create more poor. But that is despite the lack of any factual support in this matter. Yes, the lie, of course, has been repeated so often that people quote it like it's scripture. It reframes kindness as harm. It reframes helping as bad. It reframes coldness as wisdom, like we said earlier, but over 40% of weekly churchgoers report feeling uncomfortable discussing poverty or justice in their congregation. A church congregation, 4 out of 10 people feel uncomfortable talking about poverty, talking about justice in their congregation. And friends, poverty and justice, there's a word that falls under that churches don't like to talk about. What is it? Oh yeah, politics. Why? It makes no fucking sense. The very topics God commanded the most attention to have become taboo, right? And this is not an accident. This is narrative engineering. When people hear the same lies long enough, it's like truth. That compassion is dangerous, that helping the vulnerable enables weakness, right? That the poor are poor because of character flaws. The poor are poor, that drug addicts are drug addicts because of choices that they've made, and they continue to stay drug addicts because of more bad choices they continue to make. Coldness starts to look like responsible, but my friends, it's a survival strategy, of course. It becomes a worldview, and it becomes common sense. But common sense is just a repeated narrative. That's why it's common, my friends. Common sense is not logically proven factual data. If it was, it'd be called that, right? Coldness is not just taught, right? We talked about that a minute ago. It's protected. It's definitely protected. It's protected by political rhetoric. It's protected by spiritual branding. It's protected by tribal loyalty. It's protected by selective outrage. And let's look at the numbers, friends, because in this instance, you can't really talk to people with ideas or innuendo or ambiguity. You gots to be real. No, I'm in Chicago, but from Detroit. Oh, bacon for sure. Bacon for sure. 80% of Americans say political leaders behave immorally. Yet 62% still support them if they fight by their side, right? And that, my friends, is hypocrisy blindness, right? People justify coldness when it benefits their identity group. If it benefits our group, then I can let anything go, right? Kindness, well, it kind of becomes optional. Integrity, it becomes negotiable. And morality, well, it becomes team-based. So, hey, if you're on that side, you're bad. If I'm on this side, I'm good. If you're on that side, you're bad. If I'm on this side, I'm good. Come on. The U.S. has more than 400,000 churches, yet homelessness and hunger continue to rise each year. This is not because churches are failing at charity. It's because coldness has become moralized and normalized. It's become moralized, normalized. Warmth has become replaced with slogans, and compassion replaced with performance. 70% of voters admit they excuse behavior in their own party that they would condemn in the opposing one. It's both sides, man. When morality becomes partisan, ethics collapse. And coldness, it becomes loyalty. And this is why freeze persists. It's the great freeze, and it's everywhere. When your tribe tells you cruelty is necessary, you accept it. We see it over the course of history many, many, many times where humans go along with things they know are bad because their side is telling them it's good, and they're benefiting from it. How? Well, usually financially, right? When your political party tells you empathy is un-American, you damn well believe it. Coldness has a marketing department, friends, and a loyal, loyal fan base. And the longer we accept these narratives, the harder they become to break. So, what does this all mean? Well, Isaiah told us that God judges us by our warmth, not our rituals. God is going to judge us by what we do to help others. These definitions, we got to stick with them in our minds, my friends, because spiritual coldness, it is systemic. It's systemically damaging, right? I'm not saying that it's systemic, but it's systemically damaging. It can damage our systems that are in place to help care about one another, right? And some of these uncomfortable truths are not the easiest things to talk about, But instead of forcing ideas upon the people, asking them questions, or asking them, well, what about this? Or how about this? Or how does this make you feel? Or why do you feel this way? Or why do you think you feel this way? Or where did you get that idea from? And not being sarcastic about it, not being witty about it, not being a dick about it, right? Actually ask people. Because people are not, especially Americans, if you start telling them, hey, you better listen to this, or you better, people will just be like, no, just because you told them that, yeah, you need to listen to this, right? So asking them, hey, what is your opinion on this? And then asking them deeper questions about things. And then hopefully, eventually, if people have a somewhat decent head on their shoulders, they'll eventually realize whatever the fuck they were talking about and do whatever is best for their purpose-driven life, right? But America's coldness, it's been curated and reinforced and sold to us as virtue. And we've absorbed that shit straight into our DNA. It's literally the DNA of being American. But the moment that we name this lie, we name a lie in general, the freeze, my friends, it loses that power. And now that we've identified these narratives, we've identified the deeper level of the cold narrative of what we need to fight, and it helps it lose its power. We talked about trauma the other day. We talked about trying to figure out how to not let trauma keep its power over us. And the very first thing we got to do is you got to name that shit. You got to say it out loud. You got to say it out loud to some other person, right? You can't just say it to yourself. You can't just say it to you and God. You got to say it to another human, which means that everybody needs to have at least one other human that they can spread and share their deep things with. But it's time, my friends. That segment, of course, exposed that a narrative that keeps us frozen. It's time to get into the final segment, the solution. You know, we talked about all this stuff, but here at Double Dog Edition, we don't just bitch about things. We try to come up with a solution on how to fix them. So, by now, of course, we've seen the cold inside of us. We've seen the cold inside families. But today is not just the cold in our emotion as well. The culture, it didn't simply become cold, right? We didn't simply become chilly. We weren't just born cold, right? We were taught to be cold. We were rewarded for being cold. And in some case, spiritually pressured to be cold. Coldness, as it exists today, is not just a feeling, my friends. Make sure that you don't get tricked by this powerful narrative. Like I was saying, my friends, it's time to learn how to thaw our frozen world. We have spent this episode walking through the freeze, right? The cold inside us, the cold around us, the cold narratives that keep us cold and frozen. But now we've reached the final question. What do we do about it? Because naming this wound, no, it's not just enough. Like we said, we have to name it, but it's not enough. Because explaining the data around it is not enough. And we've brought out lots of statistics. We have quite a bit in there, right? And calling out the hypocrisy, because we've done that, that's not enough either. You can't just call it out and then be done, right? The world does not warm unless we, wait for it, do something, right? Not someday, not tomorrow, not when things calm down, not when I feel ready, not when life is just slow enough for us to do anything, because, my friends, tomorrow is a myth. Tomorrow will never come. Tomorrow is a constant forever tomorrow. And it's the warm blanket, of course, that the cold uses to keep you still. Tomorrow is how a frozen heart postpones healing. You say, oh, why haven't we healed yet? Because we keep trying to heal tomorrow. Tomorrow is how a society convinces you that change is always better later, right? Oh, later is better for let's do this later. But later is a lie. The thaw begins today, my friends, and it doesn't begin at all. Because the only time that something can start is today, right? Something can never start tomorrow. You let me know Has anybody out there ever started anything tomorrow? No, I don't think so. So not everything that is faced can be changed, right? Here's a quote from James Baldwin, right? Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. What does that mean for us today? Well, warmth begins with confrontation. Confrontation. But that's not anger. It's honesty. We talk about the pillars of devil dog addiction, and one of them is being honest. Being honest with ourselves. Being honest with each other, right? You can't thaw what we refuse to actually talk about and confront, right? So you have to be exposed to something. Let's get into our definitions real quick. Intentional warmth. Choosing connection as a discipline, not an emotion. A lot of people say, oh, I just want to feel some connection. I just want to feel some connection. But connection is, yeah, it is something you feel, but it's not only something you feel. It's something that you have to actively practice doing, right? Micro courage, small, everyday acts that require vulnerability, which are the seeds of real change. Micro courage, my friends. Each little baby act that you succeed at, which will beget more motivation to succeed at another bigger act, or an act of the same size or smaller, because acts can be added together to make even bigger ones, right? Emotional reopening. Reversing patterns that coldness has taught us. Communal repair. Healing not just ourselves, but the spaces we live in. Homes, neighborhoods, workplaces, churches, all of the above, right? And I've seen it. I have seen people get sober and get reconnected with their families, and then they are now the ones that are bringing the positivity to the rest of the family, when at a time they were the ones that did nothing but bring negativity or sadness or anxiety or frustration to the family. Here's another one for you, my friends. Empfluent action. Influence powered by positive empathy, changing culture through example, not domination, and not strict legislation, right? So it's time. How does warmth work? Well, the thaw doesn't happen because we make big speeches or wait for big miracles, right? It happens because small warmths, right? Repeated consistently change the temperature around us. People who engage in a single act of kindness per day show a 35% increase in emotional well-being. That's right there, my friends over there on YouTube. I hope you're having a good night, because we are talking about cold hearts, hot heads, but we're warming up our society, folks, because communities where neighbors check on each other experience a 26% drop in stress-related health problems. How about that? Interesting, right? We can warm our hearts, we can warm our communities, and we can live longer lives, and we can even get healthier. Literally, we get healthier because people know that they are cared about, or because they know that it's someone that can take them to the doctor, or they know that they have someone that's going to ask them about their well-being, and then you talk about it, right? Because when you're just by yourself and you're feeling sick, a lot of times you can talk yourself out of feeling sick. Where you can feel, oh, I don't think I'm this sick, or oh, I don't think I'm that. But someone who cares about you be like, hey, you're not looking so good. You need to go to the doctor, yo. Right? Connection isn't just sentimental. It's biological. Humans are wired for warmth, my friends. Wired for warmth. Micro connections, my friends. Eye contact, a smile, a greeting, reduce feelings of isolation by up to 40%. And that, my friends, is the power of small warmth. Changing the world is overwhelming. And when I say small warmth, I don't mean Chewbacca's human-shaped peeps. But I'll tell you this, my friends, the power of small warmth, it can change the world. And it's overwhelming. But changing our moment, that, my friends, that is not overwhelming. You can change your moment. You can change your today. You can change your self patterns moving forward. And those are things that you can handle and you can achieve, right? And then when you add that together with somebody else, and then you're like, hey, wait a minute, we can achieve that together. Then you have a good idea. And then you get another that, like we were talking about earlier. People think warming the world means solving poverty, right? Yeah, that's a good idea, right? Solve poverty, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime in the near future, right? Or ending corruption. Come on, man. That's so difficult of a thing to do. That's a cultural thing to change. Or dismantling systems overnight. These are not things that happen just because you get a great idea 1 minute of the day and you're like, oh, I'm going to change the world right now. That is not how you fix and change the world. First, we got to warm it up. And to warm it up, it begins with something simple. Something very, very simple. But warming nonetheless. How about this? Make one other person's day feel a little less chaos, a little less cold as well. Because coldness, well, it spreads fast. But guess what? Warmth, it spreads faster. You know why? Because warmth, it nourishes. Think about your life. Someone held a door for you when you were carrying too much, right? Someone called you when you felt invisible. Someone said hello. Someone complimented your work when you doubted your own worth. Someone said, hey, I care about you, when no one had said that in a long time. And I'll tell you what, folks, if you're sitting here right now with me, I care about you. And I hope that you get something from this talk. And I hope that you reach out to me, send a little message, slip into the old DMs there and say, hey, what's up? How's it going? Someone complimented maybe a new jacket you got that you were like, oh, I wonder if this jacket's cool. But someone was like, hey, your jacket's pretty cool. And you're like, dang, I'm glad someone said my jacket was cool. But, you know, these moments, they don't fix everything, right? But they just thaw you out a little bit, right? But warmth is not the miracle, right? Warmth is the maintenance, and maintenance is what prevents that emotional hypothermia that we talked about earlier. But this part, of course, is the one that matters, is that warmth changes our systems, right? Warmth is not just emotional, right? It's political, economic, and structural. It changes outcomes. Ready? Housing First programs reduce chronic homelessness by 80%. Come on. So you talk about, oh, there's so many percent about people out there that are fucking up for themselves. Okay, let that be the 20% right there. Warmth with policy, it works. It doesn't just feel good, my friends. It fixes things. Schools with social emotional support programs see a 20% increase in academic performance. So when kids can talk about things, when kids can feel that they can be people, when kids can talk about who they are and grow, they are able to focus on their academics. They're able to focus on other things. They're able to be successful in the things that we may hope that they could be successful in. It makes them stronger. It makes them smarter. And it sure as fuck makes them more resilient. And yes, kids are resilient as is, but they are also very, very fragile. Mental health investment reduces community level violence by up to 25%. So you want to talk about violence. Oh, we always talk about violent crimes or, crimes or whatever, fuck like that. Mental health investment. Investing in people's emotional well-being. Warmth, my friends, is preventative. It stabilizes families. It de-escalates conflict. It reduces desperation. And desperation is where violent crime comes from, a lot of it. Of course, not all of it. I was going to say, like, violent crimes from drug addiction comes from that. A lot of violent crimes comes from just fucked up motherfuckers who should be locked up for a long ass time, right? Warmth is cheaper, though, than coldness. We know that for sure. That warmth is safer than coldness. We know that. We know that warmth is smarter than coldness. And warmth is more effective than coldness. Coldness costs money, it makes people feel bad, and it fucks things up. But it doesn't make money for the people that can actually be helped by it, right? It just makes money for the people that, like a very small amount, right? But coldness, well, it's easier to sell, it's easier to brand, and it's definitely easier to weaponize. It's easier to fundraise with. Coldness tells us, protect yourself. Warmth tells us, protect each other. It's difficult when you can only protect this, because coldness says, take care of your own. But warmth says, we are each other's own. So, you see the nuance different there, folks? Coldness says, fear your neighbor. But warmth says, know your neighbor. And here's the hardest truth, friends, that the world stays cold because warm people wait for permission to act. But the thaw begins when one warm person decides, no more waiting, and that's what I'm doing right fucking here, friends, because no more waiting. I'm being warm to you, so go forth and be warm to others. So what does this final segment teach us? Well, my friends, it reminds us that nothing is warmed until we face it, right? We have to realize that warmth is not just a feeling. It's a practice, a discipline, something we have to do over and over again. And we've been warned in the Bible. It says that people are going to be cold because they get more selfish, because they become more wicked, and because they become more mean, right? But now we understand what the cold is. We understand where it came from. We understand what it does to us. And we understand why we stay trapped in it. So it's time, my friends, to finally thaw out. Not as an idea, not as a sermon, not as a hope, but as a practice. Well, friends, we can't thaw that frozen world tomorrow. Tomorrow, my friends. Tomorrow is the enemy of transformation. Tomorrow is how people stay stuck. Tomorrow is how coldness survives. But today is a crack in that ice, my friends. So here's what we're going to do today. Ready? Here we go. Warm one person. Okay? Just one. A message, a call, a hug, a compliment, a check-in. Do it. You will feel the thaw instantly. Number 2, tell one truth you've been avoiding. Because warmth requires honesty. And if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with others, right? But honesty is what melts numbness. Number 3, forgive one small thing. Not for them, but for you. Because when you forgive someone else, you take away that power that it has over you. And you take away that cold chill from that relationship. Number 4, do one act of courage, my friends. Say the thing, start the project, set the boundary. Take the step. Because courage, my friends, it warms the spirit. And if you can find some courage deep down, hey, send me a message and let me know what small act of courage you did to warm up your spirit. Number 5, give one piece of yourself away. Time, attention, kindness, presence. These are things that don't necessarily receive value in today's society, but are worth much more than $1. Warm communities, my friends, are built from warm exchanges. And if you do one of these 5 things today, just pick one of them. You warm your home. You warm your community. You warm your relationships. You warm your city. You warm your world. And coldness, my friends, it stops a little bit. Because the warmth, it spreads and it transforms. So with you, I wish you a very great night. I wish you a warm, warm night. I wish you to go in courage. I wish you to go in truth. And I wish you to go thaw the world, not tomorrow, but today. So, hope you guys have a great night. My name's Nick. Peace.